Hey everyone, this is Patrick and SK here at Episcopal Charities, and today we're going to walk through the Youth Opportunity Grant application portal. This video is great for anyone that's just starting this, maybe has a couple of technical questions, or just looking for a couple of tips along the way. So I'm going to pass it on to SK, who is the fabulous person who put all this together for us. And she's going to walk us through the process of filling out the YOG grant application for 2021. SK.
All right. So I'll start by showing our website, which has some great resources and information about the Youth Opportunity Grant. So if you go to our website, under How We Help will be a YOG 2021 page here. And this is going to walk through our eligibility requirements of what makes a program eligible to apply for funding with us. So take a look at those. We've also got our important dates here, so you can mark your calendars with when applications are due, which is Friday, February 12th at 5 o'clock.
Now, SK,
yes.
With that deadline of February 12th, does that mean all the applications should come in on February 12th? Or does that mean that's the last opportunity for them to come in?
That means that's the last opportunity for them to come in, Patrick.
So they can come in earlier, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
We would really encourage folks to get applications started and in as soon as you can, so you can make sure you have questions asked and that things are all set and ready to go.
Because we'll go through and we'll answer questions for you. We're going to help. We want to make sure your application is the best it can be.
Absolutely.
We have a harder time doing that if you get it to us 2 days before. We have a lot better chance of helping you out if we get it a week or 2 weeks before. So get them done as quick as you can. Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I'll just point to are these application and resources boxes. So these have some really great things to get you started. So this box here that says apply here is going to take you to our application portal where you'll actually submit your application, which I'm going to show you here in a second. This video is what you are currently watching right now. And then we have some policy items about our sexual misconduct prevention policy and our Sustainability Institute requirements, which you'll see more about in the application. The last thing I'll point to here on this website is these two forms. So these forms that are linked here are part of the application process, and your application isn't complete until you have these forms uploaded. So do make sure to go to the website and download this budget form and this application signature form that the application is going to ask for.
And those are all linked in the application as well, correct?
They are. That's exactly right. So let's go back and look at the application a little bit. So this is our application portal. If you have applied for a grant with us before, through this portal, you should be able to log in with the same email address that you've used before. There's, of course, this option to reset your password if need be, and new users will sign up and set up an account. So let me just log in here.
Excellent. And if someone has forgotten their password, all that kind of stuff can be handled through the website itself. You know, in years past, you had to go through Episcopal Charities or our office to reset that. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Exactly. So this is the home page when you've logged into our application portal here. And we can see that the first step is this profile. So we say here that you need only complete this form once. So even if you are applying for more than one program, you just need to complete one profile. And this is just important because this is where we create our contact lists. And this is how we know who to keep up to date about things going on with Episcopal Charities and with grant decisions for your grant application. So as usual, we'll ask for information about your program director and your clergy person in charge, and some things about your mailing addresses for your parish and program. And we're also asking here for any other key staff members or volunteers who you would like to be receiving updates from Episcopal Charities, list their emails there. We're gonna build our email lists from these forms, and we wanna make sure that anyone who should be hearing from us is. So please do use that box. And then the final thing I just wanted to highlight on this form is that we're also asking for your website and some of your social media links and handles. And we're just asking for these this time because we'd really like to be able to boost the great work that you all are doing on our social media and support you all that way as well. So share those with us if you have them. And finally, your parish tax ID number. So this is your tax ID number for your sponsoring parish. Anything to add there, Patrick?
Nope, this all looks great.
All righty.
And again, we're really appreciative of you all doing this. We want to keep our contact list up to date and make sure we are communicating with who you want us to communicate with.
Absolutely.
All right, so once the profile is done,
then it's time for the application. Yes.
Now, the first question I have for you is a lot of our YOG programs have a summer camp program, have an after school program, those kinds of things. In previous years, they've had to do a whole application for the summer camp program and a whole application for the after school program. Is that the case this year?
That is not the case this year. Very excited that you will not have to do that this year, and you'll just submit one application. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like and how you'll speak to both programs, but you'll only have to submit one form. So let's go ahead and look at it. So this button is open because it's still in progress. When my application is complete, this grayed out submit button here is going to turn green and clickable. And that's how you submit it and turn it into us. And you'll get a confirmation via email that we have your application and it's under review.
And notice that countdown going right
yes.
there.
Yes, so we see here there are 28 days remaining to submit this. So as you're working through your application, keep an eye on that countdown and don't let it get too close. If we open this up, we're first going to ask for just basic information about your parish and your program names. So if you do have more than one program, you'll just kind of list their names here.
So that would be where you put in like, this is the summer camp program.
Exactly.
School program. If we call it something else, whatever, you're just going to list those, put a semicolon or something like that in between so we know the difference. But you can list all those names there.
Mm-hmm. And if this is your first time applying for funding with Episcopal Charities, we're going to ask about that as well. And one thing that I'll just point to is that we also have a first time applicant orientation video for folks who are applying for Episcopal Charities funding for the first time. And that video is also linked on the YOG page that I showed before. So if this is your first time applying, do make sure to check that out. It's about a 15-minute video with Patrick. So as we're getting into this application, this is where we can see how it breaks down for if you're applying for multiple programs. So if you're one of those programs we were just talking about who is applying for funding for both an after-school program and a summer program, when you get to this question that asks about the types of programs that you're applying for, you're going to be sure to check both of those boxes. And what that's going to do is populate a series of questions later in the form that are going to ask specifically about your after-school program and specifically about your summer program. And I'll show you in a moment that those are labeled really clearly. So just keep an eye out for those bolded headings that tell you what program we're asking about. And you'll also tell us the kind of programming that you're doing in your program, whether that's academic enrichment and support or arts or skills building. You'll indicate that there as well, and check all that apply. You can do multiple service types there as well. So let's hold that thought for a moment about the multiple programs. And let's talk a little bit about the financials and operations section, because I know this part can get a little bit confusing, and it's really important that we're all on the same page so we know that what we're trying to look for. So this first question is going to ask you if your program is registered with the IRS as a 501c3 organization. Now, what we mean by that is your program, separate from your sponsoring parish, which of course has tax exempt status as a parish, but we're really talking about your program and if that itself is registered separately as a 501c3. And depending on how you answer that question, we're going to ask for some slightly different documentation from you, depending on your 501c3 status. So we're really asking for three things. The roster of your governing body. So if you are a 501c3 organization, that means your board of directors, the roster for that. If you're not, if you're a parish-based program, we're asking for your vestry roster, since that is the roster of your governing body as a parish program. Second, we're asking for either your most recent 990, and again, most recent that you have, or your most recent parish audit or diocesan audit form for parish-based programs. And then lastly, 501c3 organizations, we're going to ask for your 2021 organizational budget, whether that's for your program or for the entire organization separately, or your 2021 parish budget for parish-based programs.
And just remember, take a look at, again, follow along with what you are. So if it's asking you as a 501c3, just throw those three things up there. And again, if you have any problems, just reach out to SK.
Absolutely. But just so you know what those three items that we're asking for are. And then we're going to be asking about your program budget. So this is where that budget form on the YOG website that we were looking at earlier is going to come into play. So while we are asking for only one application form, if you're applying for multiple programs, we are going to ask you to complete a budget form for each of those programs. So in this example application here, I'm applying for an after-school program and a summer program. So I would download that budget form and fill it out for both programs and upload it here.
You fill out one budget form for each.
Exactly. I would pull out a total of two.
For the summer.
Mm-hmm, two
so
forms.
Two different documents there.
Exactly.
Right.
And why don't we look at it?
Terrific. And what you'll see is we've tried to simplify the budget form in a way that's going to give us information, but also realizing that this last year and the previous year have just been tough on budgets. So I'll let you go on there, SK. Sorry.
No, you're good. So in column A here on this budget form, you'll see, as Patrick was alluding to, we're asking for your actual spending. So we know that this last year has been crazy, and that keeping on track with your budget that you set a year and a half ago has just been not possible, right? So in column A, we're asking for your income and expenses as they have actually looked like. And be sure to include in that projections through the end of the academic year. So that means through the spring of 2021, right?
Well, and just so you know, we expect that some of these numbers are going to be kind of rocket high because a lot of your COVID expenses were so high. And we're also expecting that some of your numbers are going to be really low because you weren't able to be operational or the same kind of operation that you had intended to be. So just give us the numbers. Like, don't worry about, oh my gosh, they're going to think these are too high or too low. Just give us the numbers.
Mm-hmm. And in the second column is where we'll ask for a budget for next year. And that's where your planning for the next year is coming in, and you're saying, this is what we think we will be bringing in and spending. And also, to Patrick's point, on the second page of this budget, we're asking for you to describe these lines for any line that's greater than $500. So this form will kind of walk you through which items we're asking for a little bit more of a breakdown. So that's a space where you can give us a little bit more context for what's happening, so that we can really understand what those numbers are telling us that you filled out on the first page.
Great. If you would slide back up to that, column B is going to be really important as we go through the rest of the application. So this budget form is something you're going to want to do before you fill out the rest of the application under the finance section, because we're going to actually ask you to pull numbers that you've put on this form. So what you put in the application online should match with what you're putting in this budget here.
Exactly. Because when we come back over to the application form, we'll see here this program budget section. And as I said before, this is now where we're seeing that those questions specifically for after school and summer programs are popping up. So this is where we're asking you to pull those numbers from column B of your budget form and just directly input them here in this form. So after school programs, the grant amount requested for the 2021 to 2022 academic year, I am just copying the number from line 4 of column B right here.
Right.
And so
one of the reasons we're doing this is it allows us to do some calculations within the system, and it helps our advisory committee.
Exactly. So you'll do that for each of the programs that you're applying for. And then we move into more operations questions of what is going on, what are you doing? And so we'll ask about your hours of operation for each of your programs, the date the program begins and ends through the year. And then we're also asking here in this last question, how many total weeks the program is going to be in operation during the 2021-2022 year. And that's important because, again, as Patrick was saying, it helps us just kind of look at numbers a little bit and see what's happening on a weekly sort of basis for you. And it's just really helpful for our advisory committee to have a more fuller picture of how you all are operating. And once we've moved through that part, we get into the numbers served. And I know this can be confusing. So let's talk a little bit about what we're asking for when we're asking about your numbers. So the first thing we're going to ask for is your average weekly duplicated attendance during this 2020 to 2021 year. And what that number is the average number of youth served by your program in a week. And it's a duplicated number because we're asking about how many kids were there each day, regardless of who those kids were. So if a child came to your program on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of a week, they're counted as 3 for that duplicated weekly attendance number.
And throughout the application, if you look, the main question we're asking you is in bold.
Mm-hmm.
Just under the field where you type in, there's often questions with gray in it. And that's just kind of an explanation or a series of prompts. So right there is that exact example. If a child came to your program 3 times in 1 week, they should be counted as 3 for the purposes of this question. Okay, so if you are like, oh, I don't know if I'm answering this, and you see some gray, that will hopefully clarify any questions you have about that question.
Definitely, yes. Anytime you see gray text, be sure to read that because it's likely going to give you some additional information. The next number we're asking for is your unduplicated total youth served by your program in the year. And that for year-long programs, we're including projections through the end of the year. If there are kids who haven't yet been served by your program, but will in April and May, include those in that number as well. But in this case, each child is counted only once. So in that same example, as before, if we're talking about a kid who came Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every single week of your program, they are still only counted as 1 for the purposes of this question.
Great. Staffing and infrastructure.
Staffing and infrastructure. So here we're asking about the paid full and part-time staff for your program. And one thing that I would note is that when we're asking about full-time staff for summer programs, that includes staff who are full-time for the summer, right? So get those numbers in there in terms of your staff. And then we're going to ask a little bit about your volunteers. So we're asking about the average number of volunteers who are serving at your program in a week, and about how many hours total do volunteers give weekly. And just a note, I don't have gray text here, but these can be duplicated numbers as well. These should be duplicated numbers. So if a volunteer comes every day in a week, they're counted as 4 volunteers and their total hours are counted there. And then we're asking if you have need of or interest in a free volunteer management system, and if you need additional volunteers. And this is really where you're able to tell us how we can support you in your volunteer program and in the ways that you're engaging with volunteers. So Episcopal Charities has just purchased a volunteer management system that we're giving to programs to use to run their volunteer programs. And so if you answer yes to this question, I will be in touch with you shortly to talk about how we can integrate that for your program. And if you tell us that you need additional volunteers, I will also be in touch with you to figure out how to get some more hands in your program. So those questions are important, both to tell us what's going on with your volunteers, but also so we can know how we can support you to continue engaging volunteers sustainably.
And now we're to the application questions.
Yes.
And this is, so if you think about the first part of the application are like numbers and details and how you're operating and stuff like that. The application questions are meant to really tell us your story. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you're trying to do. A couple of things. Remember, when you see the bold questions, that's kind of the big question we're asking, but you'll see under each one of these that we have gray text as well. And those are really prompts. So it doesn't mean you have to answer each one of those little gray questions, but those are there to kind of give you some guidance as to kind of what we're thinking. Second thing, you'll see that we have word counts, and that for questions we're saying, listen, we don't want you to write 3 pages or feel like you have to write 3 pages to answer this question. We want to tell you exactly what we're looking for. So mind those word counts, or you actually won't be able to go over them. And the third thing is, even though you're doing one application, you're going to be answering these questions for both or all 3 of the programs you're applying for. So give us a general feel. If you've got an after-school program and a summer camp program, then you're going to talk about the populations that you're working with in that particular question. So just remember, look for the gray, mind the word counts, and that you're answering these questions for the total number of programs that you're applying for a grant for.
Awesome. And there are just a few of them, so hopefully it won't. We're not trying to kill you with essay questions here.
Trying to narrow and edit out questions is our objective.
Exactly. And once you get through those regular sort of application questions that will probably look a little bit familiar to you if you've applied with us in years past, then we're going to ask you about the impact of the pandemic on your program. So this is where you get to really tell us what the last year has been like and how the pandemic has affected your program's operations and your thinking for your plans for the coming year. And we're also asking here about if any portion of your programming is going to be offered virtually, and to describe that and tell us about how you're using technology to keep engaging with kids. And finally, you'll tell us whether you have been a recipient of an emergency grant from Episcopal Charities COVID-19 fund here. And this last, sorry, Patrick, do you have something to add?
Nope, go for it.
sorry. So here we're asking about the site visits. And this is really important for our advisory committee members who are going to come to your programs in the spring to visit with you all and have a conversation about how things are going at your program. And this year we're going to be doing site visits either in person or virtually. And that's kind of according to your comfort level, the advisory committee's comfort level, and just what your program looks like and if what makes the most sense for you. So you'll tell us whether you prefer an in-person or a virtual visit and give us the contact information for the person who should coordinate that visit so that our advisory committee member will just reach directly out to that person to schedule a time for you to sit down and have a conversation.
And then finally, we have all the good policy stuff.
All the good policy things.
So what you'll see is if you are a parish-based program, that means like the vestry is in charge of the program or has supervision over the program ultimately, then you need to be following the Safe Church guidelines that were put out by the Diocese of New York. And those are actually linked on our website. And it's very, very important that you are following those. Now, some of the programs that are applying report to a board or something that's not an actual parish. And if that is the case, then we need you to upload your policies for preventing sexual misconduct. If you have specific questions about that, please come and email SK or myself, and we're happy to have a conversation with you. But we're going to ask you to upload that if you are not a part of the Safe Church kind of universe that we have. Mm-hmm. Also, sustainability institutes. The new policy, this last year we weren't able to host many sustainability institutes, but this year we are. Most of those are going to be held virtually. And so the policy is you need to attend three virtual sustainability institutes, or you can attend one virtual sustainability institute and one in-person sustainability institute if we get to be in person. So that's those two policies right there.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing that I'll add to this section too is that this first question asks about if you've completed a training or you have a policy. And if you say no, you're going to get this box that's going to say, why not?
Why not?
And ask what support or assistance do you need in meeting that requirement? What has been difficult for you in meeting that requirement, and how can we help you to get there? And then the last thing is our vignettes, which we ask for every year. And you can do 1, 2, 3, so you don't have to do all 3. And these are just 3 stories that illustrate how your program is transforming lives. And so you can talk about youth that are served, the volunteers you're working with, however you want to tell your program story and how you're having an impact in your community. And finally, you'll upload that signature form that we looked at from our website at the beginning here. And that's it. You can save this application as a draft and come back to it as you're working. So be sure to do that.
You can also share your login information with different people in your organization. If you've got different people working on different sections, use the same login. It'll get you to the same application and go about whatever you need to do there.
Exactly.
Okay. I think that's it. Do you have anything else, SK?
I think we covered everything.
So my last thing that I would say is please give us a call, shoot us an email, whatever you need to do, let us know how we can be of assistance. If you get your application done early, you can also let us know that, and we're happy to take a look at it. Again, our objective is to have the strongest applications possible so that our advisory committee and our board can make really good decisions. So with that, thank you so much. We're so grateful for all the work you're doing. Let us know how we can help. Okay, everyone stay safe and be well. Talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
All right.